So an applicant shows up with $7,000 in hand. What do you do? Today on the Landlord Coach Daily-ish show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Hey everybody, my name is Mark Dolfini, Landlord Coach and host of the Landlord Coach Daily-ish show. Welcome to today's show. And today we have a pretty interesting topic. If you missed the intro, is if you have an applicant that shows up with $7,000 in hand, what is it that you do? So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But let me do a quick plug. If you are looking to grow your knowledge base from based on the VIP method taught in the Time Wealthy Investor over here, that's you can go to that, get a free copy of the book. All I ask is you cover shipping. But let's get to the topic today. So an applicant shows up with $7,000 in hand, ready to rent. What is it that you do? Well, I know what I used to do. Grab that money, throw the keys at him, and run away. That's exactly what, I can understand if that's something that you wanted to do, because that's something that I would certainly do, and not even worry about screening them. I'm like, well, they seem like nice enough people, and as long as they don't burn the place down, I suppose that's what you should do, right? Well, it's actually, there's some major red flags that have gone up, and red flags that I didn't even think about, and things like something called Smurfing, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But there's so many red flags related to things like this, and it's not necessarily, doesn't always mean that it's something, nefarious is going on. Man, I love that word. I never get to use that often enough. Nefarious. But something bad. It doesn't necessarily mean that something bad or sideways is going on, but it certainly warrants deeper inspection in terms of what's going on. So let's talk about that here a little bit. What are some of the things that could go wrong? Well, I mentioned earlier something called Smurfing. And Smurfing is the idea where where a drug dealer or someone doing real bad stuff is going to find a good, clean person that will pass credit checks and all that stuff, and they would apply for the house or apartment or wherever it is that they're looking to go, and they generally want private landlords. They don't want to be dealing with property managers because they know property managers generally have rules and systems in place. Not always, but generally. That's why whenever I see these ads for different individuals looking for specifically for private landlords, it's because they know they can be manipulated. And this is a dead giveaway when people are looking specifically for private landlords. And they're like, oh, well, we just want to work with somebody that we can get to know, that we can have a relationship with. Yeah, maybe that's true. I'm not saying that's always the case, that people are trying to do bad things, but they will definitely target the mom and pop landlords because they know that they don't have systems in place to do normal screening, or if they are going to do screening, the screening is very limited. So what happens is the clean person will rent the house. Generally, this happens with properties that are remote, that are out in the farm, a farmhouse out in the country. And, so they're not going to be disturbed. They can have their pole barns and do all their stuff and do all sorts of weird activity out there, and no one's going to know. So if they're out there and planning on, manufacturing methamphetamines, that's a problem because that stuff can really damage your house to the point where it's almost cheaper to knock down than actually to remediate it. But again, I'm not a remediator, but I'm just telling you it can get really, really expensive if that stuff is allowed to happen in your property. So what'll happen is they'll, we'll stay on the drug dealer bandwagon for here, or not even dealer, but manufacturer. So they manufacture those that stuff out in your property. You can have people come and go. No one would know the difference. Distributors come and go. Dealers come and go. Whatever. And meanwhile, they're manufacturing all this crap on your property. Well, they've already prepaid the rent. Let's say that the rent's $1,000. And they've waived that $7,000 in front of you, or $8,000 or whatever. They're going to waive that in front of you and go, hey, yeah, we just want to prepay the rent. We just don't want any problems. We don't want to fall behind or whatever it is. You usually won't see that much, but somewhere between 3 and 5 and 7,000 is kind of the magic number, just enough to entice that individual mom and pop landlord who's been sitting on a vacancy for maybe the last 30 days, and that's where it goes. So what do? I will tell you almost every instance where someone was going to prepay the rent. And now this is back in when I was the individual landlord and I didn't really have processes in place. Almost every single time when someone would come to me with a situation, did it work out positively in my favor? It was literally 1 in 100. So after a while, I kind of got smart in terms of what was going on. Now, I never had any manufacturing of anything bad going on in the properties that I knew about. But what was happening was these people would, they'd get a tax check or some other lump sum of money, maybe pay a month or two, and then I'd never see them again. Literally never see them again. I would be like almost wondering like, hey, wait a minute. Shouldn't these people have paid rent last month? I forgot about them. And that's kind of what they're hoping for. So by the time you come back around to the property and you've been asking for rent, you're not getting your text messages returned from the nice person that you had approved, they're no longer gone. That burner phone has been shut off and probably thrown in the river. And now there's a bunch of people living in this property that you don't even know. As you roll up to the property and there's black trash bags over the windows or tinfoil over the windows or whatever. They don't want you to see what's going on in the property. It can be a nightmare. It can be a real problem, especially in states that are pretty quick to give squatters rights and all this other stuff. So you've got to be very, very careful. So what's the solution to this? Well, first of all, you have to have a process in place for screening residents. And I don't care how big or thick the stack of cash is that they're waving in front of you. You have to be disciplined to make sure that you're following your processes and procedures for screening your residents. That's exactly what I had to do. And guess what? The level of drama in my life went down substantially. And that was all my fault. I was setting people up to fail, and I was setting myself up to fail because I didn't have, number one, processes in place. And number two, if I did have processes in place, I'm looking at that stack of cash going, man, there's a lot of bills I could pay with that. And it ended up costing me almost 3 times that amount later on, just in damages and headaches and legal fees and so forth. So what I would suggest to you is don't ever take that lump sum of cash just and say, well, that works for me. We don't even really have to screen anybody. Resist that urge as much as you possibly can and get them to fill out an application. Make sure you get a photo ID from every adult applicant that's going to be living in the property. Charge an application fee. I don't care what you charge, but charge something. Get them to have some skin in the game and do a full screening. And I like to screen credit. I like to screen making sure do a criminal background check, making sure they're not running from the law, that sort of thing, and bounce them against the standards that you have for your rentals. Whether you're going to whatever the standards are. I'm not going to tell you what they should be, but you should have standards that in terms of who you're going to be renting those properties to, and as long as they meet those criteria, then you rent to them, and if they don't, you don't. You send them an adverse action letter and then move on to the next applicant. And that's really it. I mean, it really shouldn't be that complex, but renting to people just simply because they're coming and showing up with a lump sum of cash is an absolutely horrible way to do business and manage your risk. So that's all I have for today. I'm just going to give a quick plug to my friends over at Rent-A-Ware. If you are looking for rental property management software specifically designed for the home or the mom and pop investor, for whether you've got single family dwellings or multifamily or whatever it is designed for you, so you don't have to try to shoehorn property management software that's designed for property managers into your infrastructure that actually is designed for you. Also, again, real quick plug for landlordcoach.com. If you're looking for a copy of a lease or even just some other different videos that you don't see that I have posted, there's some posted there, some really helpful stuff. But and also, of course, you can get a copy of the Time Wealthy Investor 2.0 sent to you for free. All I ask you is that you just cover shipping. And that's all I have for today. So I'm going to wrap this up. My bride and I are heading off to the gym because we are really serious about trying to get back in shape. So that's all I have for today, everybody. Please be sure to place a value on your free time, because if you don't, someone else will. But most important, there is no amount of money that will make time irrelevant. Have an awesome day, and I will see you guys next time.